friends, I have a book for you today. It's called Two Tall Houses by Gianna, Marino. It's about an owl and a rabbit. They look like they're friends. Rabbit and owl lived in two small houses on top of a hill. Oh, that looks like a nice place to live, doesn't it? You can see the whole valley. Rabbit liked to grow vegetables in the sun, and Owl enjoyed the view of the forest. There's Rabbit working hard in his garden, and Owl looking at the forest. In the evening, they played under the twilight sky. They were good neighbors and good friends. Until one day, oh dear, what's going to happen? Rabbit, Owl complained, your garden is growing too tall. I can't see the forest. But what can I do? Replied Rabbit. I have to grow my food. He looks kind of mad, doesn't he? He looks kind of sad. Now we're in a problem. So Owl began to build his house taller. Rabbit watched and chittered his teeth. Doesn't sound like he liked the idea of Owl building his house taller. Owl, look what you did. Your house is blocking the sun from reaching my garden. But I have to see the forest, said Owl. So Rabbit built his house taller too and planted some vegetables on the roof. But when Rabbit watered the rooftop plants, what's gonna happen? Oh dear. It made Owl very angry. He got water all over his head. So Owl built his house even taller. I want to be the tallest, yelled Rabbit. He's getting madder and madder, isn't he? What? Screeched Owl. You are so far below me that I can't hear you. So Rabbit built his house even taller and put a fence around his garden. Oh dear, that's not what friends do, is it? Who do you think you are? Screeched Owl. And he went to find more twigs for his house, and Rabbit went to fetch more soil for his house. Oh dear, I don't think they're friends anymore. And soon they had the two tallest houses in the world. Oh my gosh, I have to tip the book sideways to see how tall their houses are. Oh dear, those are very tall houses. Owl, I can't carry water up my ladder, cried Rabbit. And I can't see the forest, said Owl. Oh, they made a bigger problem for themselves. Way up high, the wind roared and bellowed. Whoosh! Creak! What's happening? Oh no! There go their houses. And blew the two tall houses into the air. Crack! Whoosh! Hold on, Rabbit, cried Owl. Oh look, he's helping his friend. They're holding on to the ladder. Hold on, Rabbit. They landed with a plunk. All I have left is a pile of dirt, moaned Rabbit. My house is a bunch of broken twigs, sighed Owl. Alone they had nothing. Oh dear. But together they had all they needed. All they needed to build one small house. Look, and they had their garden. Well, that was a good story. So they were friends, and then they started to have some not so good times together, and they ended up having a good time. And they ended up with a very nice house that they both could live in. So I was thinking about this book. I was thinking about Rabbit's Garden. I was thinking, I wonder where seeds come from and where flowers come from. Because this is the time of year where I see so many things growing. So I thought, I know things come from seeds, and I know that botanists are scientists who study plants. I thought maybe I would become a botanist and be a scientist and study and see how plants grow. So I did a little bit of research, and I found out that most plants start with seeds. So this is a seed, and seeds have food inside of them, and they have a coating that's around the outside that protects the food. So what happens is the seed goes into the ground. It can either go in the ground or on top of the ground, but it definitely needs soil in order to grow. What else does a seed need to grow? Do you know? It needs some rain. And what the rain does is the rain softens the seed so it can start to get ready to come out of its coating. Then what happens, what comes next, is the sun. And the sun is going to warm up the earth. Here's the sun. It's going to warm the earth up and help the seed pop open. And that's called germination. That's a term called germination. That's a big word, germination. So what happens with the seed is then, after it pops open, some roots begin to grow. And the roots get all the minerals and all the water from the soil and soak it up. And then what happens after that is a shoot starts to come from the seed. And after the shoot comes up, leaves start to form on the shoot. And then the plant has the food in the leaves. So all the minerals and the water comes up through the roots and goes into the leaves, and that's what feeds the plant. And the plant gets bigger and bigger until it starts to bud. And then comes a big, beautiful flower on top of that. And flowers have lots of parts inside them. So what happens is the flowers make a seed, and that's something called pollination. That's another big word. So a seed gets made inside the flower by pollinators. And there are things that pollinate a flower, like birds, bees pollinate a flower, butterflies. So those are all good for flowers. Hummingbirds, they all help pollinate flowers and make new seeds. Then what happens to the seed? What happens is the seed gets a fruit around it or a pod, and then it protects the seed. So then when the seed is ready to drop, it either falls down into the ground, or sometimes the wind will blow when the pod is ready to come off. The wind will blow, or an animal might take it. Sometimes, like a squirrel will eat an acorn. That's the seed of an oak tree. So they will take the seed and spread it into different areas when they eat it. Birds will also drop seeds because they like to eat berries, and they'll carry the berries inside their beaks, and sometimes they drop, and then a seed will grow. Also, people can spread seeds. They sometimes, some seeds have a pod that's around them that's kind of sticky, and it can stick to people's pants when they're walking through, and then it drops off, and then it goes into the soil, and it grows into a plant. And also, this is kind of gross, but animals like bears, they eat lots of berries, and when they poop, sometimes the seeds are in their poop, and it drops into the soil, and it grows. Also, I don't know if I mentioned the wind. The wind sometimes blows plants, and sometimes when I'm in my garden, I say, how did this plant get here? Because it's way on the other side of my yard, and it had to be one of those ways to get there. So that made me think of a song that I know. Anyway, so I thought I'd teach you my song. I'm going to turn this around and teach you my song. So do you remember what seeds need to grow? They need soil, and they need rain, and they need the sun. So this song goes, if you got the sun, and if you got the rain, you can plant a little seed in the old back lane. You rake and you hoe and you keep the weeds down, and you might find a root growing out from the seed in the ground. If you got the sun and if you got the rain, you can plant a little seed in the old back lane. You rake and you hoe and you keep the weeds down, and you might find a stem growing out from the root, from the seed in the ground. If you got the sun and if you got the rain, you can plant a little seed in the old back lane. You rake and you hoe and you keep the weeds down, and you might find a flower growing out from the stem, from the root, from the seed in the ground. One more time. If you got the sun and if you got the rain, you can plant a little seed in the old back lane. You rake and you hoe and you keep the weeds down, and you might find a seed popping out from the flower, from the stem, from the root, from the seed in the ground. Isn't that a fun song? Okay, so if I'm going to be a botanist and I'm going to learn to plant, I need some plants. So I thought maybe I could plant some seeds with you. So I am going to turn this around and show you what I did. So this is my planting station. And what I did was, I made something. I've never done this before, so I thought I would try it and see what happens. So I took an old bottle and some seltzer, and I took off the cover, and I made a rectangle on here. And then I cut the rectangle out. I also took the top off. So then I punched in a hole here on the bottom, and another hole here, and one on the top, and one over here. And guess what I did? I decided I was going to make a hanging planter. So I connected them together. Whoops, gotta get my shovel out of the way. And I've got 4. I decided to do 4. You could do as many as you want, but since I've never done this before, I decided to try to start with 4. Okay, so since I'm a scientist, I need to get tools together. So I need a ruler. I need a magnifying glass. I need some scissors, and I have a chart that I made because I'm going to plant, since I did 4 containers, I'm going to do 4 different kinds of seeds. And I'm hoping they grow. I'm not really sure if they're going to, but I'm going to hope so. So I got some tomato plants, and I got things that I like. I like cilantro. I like zinnias. I like mesclun, which is salad. And with this, what you can do is you can grow it, and you can cut it when it's really small and you can eat it, or you can let it grow and get bigger and eat it when it's bigger. So I thought that would be fun to do. Also, if you want, you can paint this if you want to paint it. I decided I want to keep it clear because I wanted to be able to investigate what happens underneath the soil, to maybe see if I could see those roots under the soil. So I put dirt in already. So what I thought we would do is we would make a hypothesis. So you need dirt, right? You need rain, and you need the sun to make plants grow. So I thought maybe we could say for our hypothesis that our plants are going to grow in the sunshine. They're going to grow in our pots because this is an experiment, because I don't know if this is going to work. So that's our hypothesis. My prediction is, when I look at the directions on my seeds, some of them say they will germinate in 7 to 15 days. Do you remember what germinate means? It means the seed's going to start to break open and do roots. All right, so the mescaline is going to take 7 to 10 days. And this is what the mescaline seeds look like. All seeds come in different colors, different sizes. Can you see those seeds? It looks like salt and pepper. They're very light. So the directions on the package say to sprinkle the seeds all over the dirt, and then to sprinkle a little dirt, cover with just 1/4 inch of dirt on top of the seeds. So 1/4 inch is not even up to my fingertip. So I'm going to make sure that's all the dirt I put on. And what I did was I decorated a stick to tell me what was in the planter, because I have a hard time sometimes remembering where I plant stuff. So I decorated a stick. You can decorate whatever you want. You can make your sticks as big as you want, but it needs some kind of marker just to tell you what you put in there. So the zinnia seeds, we can start with the mescaline. So I decided to make my chart, right? You can make a fancy chart on the computer, or you can do it like I did. I just drew it. So I put the mescaline, I numbered them so I would remember. So number 1 is the top, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the tomatoes in the top, because they're going to grow the tallest. So I figured they would bump into one of the bottles. So I'm going to put them in the top. So number 1 is going to be the tomatoes. Number 2 is going to be the zinnias, because they also grow tall. So I'm kind of hoping maybe they will kind of scoot out a little bit. And cilantro and the mescaline is going to be on the bottom, because I can keep those short if I want to keep them short. So you have to think about all these things ahead of time before you do your planting. So what I thought we could do is put our, we're going to do our mescaline seeds first, because that's going to go on the bottom. So we put a little bit of dirt inside our bottle. Here's the bottom one, okay? Whoops, I just tipped over that one. And you know what? The fun thing about science is it's not exact. And some things go wrong sometimes and some things don't. So I'm going to sprinkle my seeds all over the bottle. Can you see that? It's like I'm sprinkling salt and pepper in my bottle. Then I'm going to put a little bit of dirt. So I have my dirt ready. I'm going to put a little bit of dirt on top of my seeds. Remember, it said just 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to cover it about the size of my pinky. I'm going to put a little bit more in. Okay. So I'm going to cover those seeds. All right. Then I'm going to put my, I'm going to put my marker in there. So I decorated it because it's green. I decided, and I like tomatoes in my salad, so I will have salad. So I put little tomatoes on my marker, and it says mescaline on the back. And sometimes you can put a date on the back if you want, but I'm going to put that marker in there before I forget where I planted it. Okay, next comes the cilantro. All right, so the cilantro seeds are a little bit different. They actually look like cracked pepper. Can you see those in there? Actually, if I hold them this way, you might be able to see them better. I'll put them in my hand. They're a little trickier. It's kind of like cracked pepper. They're bigger and they're hard. So, on the directions of the cilantro, it says these also germinate in 14 days. So, remember what germinate is? Yep. So they will germinate, they will open up and start making roots in 14 days. So you know what, I could write on the top, I'm gonna write 14, and the mescaline was 7 days. So I'm gonna sprinkle that in. I'm gonna put a little hole with my pinky and put a seed in. Now since these are in little bottles, I'm not gonna plant a lot of seeds. I just want to see what grows. This is gonna be an experiment. Should be fun. All right, so I put in 6 holes. Oops, I just lost my seed. I'll get another one. All right, so can you see? This is where I put my seeds in. All right, and then I'm gonna put some dirt on top of those seeds. Okay, it's hard to show this. All right, I'm gonna put some dirt on top. Okay. All right, there's my cilantro seeds. All right, now I'm gonna plant my zinnia seeds. Now zinnia seeds, they almost look like teeny tiny feathers. This is what the zinnia seeds look like. Now, some seeds you're supposed to start ahead of time. Zinnias is one of them, so it's going to take kind of a long time for my seeds to germinate. It's going to take 7 to 10 days. So I'm going to write 7 on that when they start to germinate. I'm going to make a 7. All right, and then it says, so you can sprinkle them on, and then you can, once they start to come up, you can separate them a little. So I really like zinnias, so I thought maybe I'll spread a lot in there. Just so I hope some of them grow. Okay. Oh, and guess what? I forgot to put my cilantro. See how I forget to do stuff? So I did a pattern with my cilantro. And there it says cilantro on the back. So I'm going to put my cilantro tag in there. And here's my zinnia. I did some zinnia flowers on mine. That's my marker, so I'm going to put that in my zinnias. All right, now I'm going to plant my tomato plants. So my tomato plants are going to go in this one. You see this one? In the top one, remember? All right, so I'm going to put some more dirt in because there's not a lot of dirt in there. Now this is a real experiment because tomato plants grow pretty tall. So I might have to take these out. We'll see. We'll see how much they grow. So when you plant, I bought them already planted. I didn't buy a seed. So you squeeze it gently and pull it out. I'm only going to put 2 tomato plants in here, just in case. And then you wiggle the roots a little bit and break them open. And I'm going to plant it inside, so we'll be able to see the roots of that tomato plant. And I'm going to put another one in. I got to squeeze the bottom and pull it out and open up the roots and plant that. All right, we need to put a little bit more dirt in, more soil, so those roots can have something nice and nutritious to eat. All right, and do you remember what else we need for seeds to grow? Oh, and here's my tomato plant. See, I put little cherry tomatoes on there because I like cherry tomatoes. So that's going to go in there. Now, do you remember what comes next? We have to water our plants. So when I first plant seeds, I just like to mist them so they don't get moved all over the place. So I'm going to mist each jar. There's one jar. That's my mescaline. All right, here's my cilantro. I'm gonna get that nice and wet. Okay, this is just water in my jar. And here is my zinnias. They're gonna get wet. And here is my tomatoes. Okay, now what I need to do is carefully pick up my plants, and I have to go find some sunshine. So I'm gonna, oh, you know what we could do first? Why don't we measure? So you can use your chart and do some math and do some measuring. So I'm going to measure my tomatoes right now and see how big they are. So my tomatoes, I'm going to use my ruler, my tool. And let's see, my tomatoes are 3 inches tall. So I'm going to write the date. Today's the 28th, May 28th, and I'm going to write 3 inches tall. Now, I'm going to look at the rest of the seeds and see what's happening. I use my magnifying glass. Nothing's happening. Not yet. All right, so when they start to grow, I can write the measurements down and see how fast they grow. And also, I can, since I wrote my 7 and my 14, I can see if they germinate when the package told me. And I can start to see the seed open up and see the roots come down through the plastic. Okay? You can also look and see if you've got too much water in there. You might have to poke some holes in the bottom of it. I'm not really sure because, like I said, I've never done this before. This is an experiment. So I'm going to try to lift it up carefully and show you what it's going to look like. Whoa. Ready? This is what it looks like. Oh dear. Look. Now, whoa. So look at, I have 4 bottles. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now what I have to do is go find some sunshine. So I thought I'll go do that and find it in my backyard. But thanks for planting with me. I hope you had fun being a botanist. And I hope you got inspired by that book too and start to do some planting. All right, have fun. See you later.